Hey, we're Sam and Maya, and this is Shift Happens. This podcast is for the people who know, deep down, that reality isn't fixed, that maybe, just maybe, you can hack the system.
Have you ever felt like you're trying to build this incredible new future, but it feels like you're still running on some really outdated operating system?
Oh, absolutely. That feeling is so common.
Yeah, you know that loop, right? You change jobs, you maybe upgrade your wardrobe, you start all these new habits, but deep down it's like the same old fears, the same self-sabotage.
Those same invisible limits just keep popping up. It's
Yeah.
frustrating.
Exactly. So our deep dive today is all about truly upgrading that internal software. We're talking about uninstalling the old version of yourself.
And what's really compelling here, I think, isn't just the metaphor, right? It's the practical side. There's actually an evidence-backed approach to this kind of, well, profound self-transformation that our sources get into.
Yes, because the science is increasingly showing that our self, who we think we are, is far more malleable, more like programmable than most of us believe.
It's really not this fixed entity we're stuck with. That's a game changer.
It totally is, and that's exactly what we're going to explore today. Our mission really is to unpack two powerful sources. One digs into the science and the psychology behind it, rewiring identity.
The evidence base.
Right, and the other, uninstalling your old self, gives a really actionable method, like step by step. So we want to show you why your identity isn't permanent code and, crucially, how you can actively rewrite it.
It's about taking the reins, essentially.
Yeah, so let's unpack this. What if that feeling of being stuck isn't you at all? What if it's just, I don't know, an outdated program running in the background?
That's such a powerful distinction to make because, it shifts the whole narrative. It stops being about some personal failing.
Right, like what's wrong with me?
Exactly. And it becomes about an outdated system. This isn't your core essence we're talking about. It's a version of you that was probably expertly built for survival at some point in your past.
To keep you safe.
Precisely. This old code was designed for safety, but the irony is now it often just blocks your ability to thrive. It gets in the way of the future you want.
And it can be so subtle, can it? Like, you don't even realize it's running until you spot these patterns.
Oh yeah, like chronic overthinking.
Totally. Or that procrastination that just always creeps in. Or maybe shrinking your voice when it matters, avoiding being seen.
Or, and this one's big, finding yourself attracting the same kind of, say, emotionally unavailable people over and over again.
Yes. One of our sources shared this reflection that really hit home for me. She said, I didn't realize I had installed a version of myself that was scared of success.
Wow. That's insightful.
Isn't it?
Huh?
She only noticed because every time she got close to something big, like a new client, a breakthrough, a big relationship step, she'd sabotage it somehow.
How did she do that? Like, what did it look like?
Well, she said she'd get sick or isolate herself or suddenly just doubt everything. And that led her to ask this really profound question. What version of me is still running this show? And is she actually helping or hurting my progress?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is. And asking it honestly, really honestly, can fundamentally shift your whole trajectory.
It's so critical because real progress, often doesn't come from adding more stuff, more skills, more hustle.
Stacking more things on top.
Right. It comes from deleting what doesn't align anymore. It means letting go of that identity, maybe addicted to struggle, or uninstalling beliefs that feel comfortable but actually smell like fear.
Saying goodbye to that old version.
Exactly. Gracefully saying goodbye to a version of you who, look, did her best in the past, kept you safe maybe, but she just doesn't have the toolkit to get you to your next level.
Now, I know some listeners might hear this and think, okay, sounds a bit like self-help jargon, but here's where it gets really, really interesting.
The science.
The science. It actually proves this isn't just a metaphor. Our sources lay out a pretty compelling case for why this is more than just wishful thinking.
That's right. And at the core of it all is neuroplasticity. We know the brain literally rewires itself based on experience.
We hear that term a lot, but what does it really mean in this context?
Well, what our sources emphasize is that your brain is constantly mapping your identity onto its physical structure. So when you repeatedly think old thoughts, feel old feelings, do old actions, you're physically strengthening those neural pathways.
You're digging the groove deeper.
You got it. So the uninstall process, it isn't just some mental exercise. It's about actively weakening those old, unhelpful pathways and deliberately forging new ones. New pathways that align with who you want to become.
People like Dr. Joe Dispenza talk a lot about this.
Exactly. He really deepens this idea, showing how those habitual thoughts literally hardwire old identities into your brain structure, and choosing new thoughts consistently that genuinely reshapes your neural architecture over time.
So it's physical. It's not just a thought. It's the brain's structure changing. Wow. That's a huge shift.
It is huge.
Yeah.
And it ties directly into identity-based habits. James Clear talks about this brilliantly.
From Atomic Habits.
Yeah, he argues that real lasting change doesn't come from setting goals like I want to lose weight. It comes from changing who you believe you are.
Okay. How does that work?
So instead of saying I want to be fit, the profound shift is saying internally and externally, I am someone who doesn't miss workouts. See the difference?
Okay. It's about embodying the identity now.
Precisely. That identity shift, that reprogramming at the root level, that's what the sources pinpoint as the key to making changes stick.
And there's more, right? Something about stories.
Yes. Dr. Dan McAdams of Clinical Psychologist talks about the self as a story. His idea that we humans organize our entire lives, our sense of self, through personal narratives, our stories.
Like the story we tell ourselves about ourselves.
Exactly. So this means if you can actively edit or even replace your core life story, especially those narratives where you feel stuck or defined by trauma, you can directly alter your personality traits over time. You change the story, you change the self.
Which sounds a lot like what happens in therapy, like CBT.
Absolutely. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, has been a powerhouse in psychology for decades for this very reason. At its heart, CBT is about identifying and uninstalling those automatic self-limiting beliefs.
The negative self-talk loops.
Right. And then consciously replacing them with new, more empowering cognitive patterns. It's the practical application of letting go of thought patterns that just don't serve you anymore.
Okay, so we've got neuroplasticity, identity habits, self-stories, CBT.
Yeah.
Anything else on the science front?
Well, there's also a fascinating brain network involved. The default mode network, or DMN.
The brain's autopilot setting.
Exactly. The DMN is basically running your internal monologue, your habitual thoughts about yourself, your past, your future. It's kind of where your identity loop lives day to day. What's really intriguing is that things like deep meditation, focused self-reflection, even certain types of psychedelic therapy under clinical supervision, they've been shown to temporarily quiet down or deactivate the DMN.
And what happens then?
People often report this profound sensation of breaking free, like literally stepping outside their old version of self. It gives this powerful experiential sense that the self is much more fluid, much less fixed than we usually assume.
Wow. Okay, so the science is there, the potential is there.
Right.
What does this look like in the real world? Let's talk about some examples, people who actually did this.
Yeah, there are some really inspiring examples. Think about Oprah Winfrey. She's spoken quite openly about consciously shedding her old identity, one tied to trauma, poverty, shame.
A really difficult past.
Absolutely. And she replaced it with a version of herself who knew she deserved love, wealth, a global platform. She famously said something like, I became the person I believed I could be.
That belief came first.
It seems so.
Yep.
And then there's Jim Carrey. You know the story about the check.
The $10 million check he wrote to himself.
That's the one.
Yeah.
When he was broke, he wrote himself that check, dated it for the future, carried it around.
Yeah.
But the key thing wasn't just the check. He talks about internally becoming that successful version of himself years before the breakthrough actually happens.
So he didn't just visualize it passively.
You know, he acted as if he embodied that future identity long before the external reality caught up. That's a crucial distinction.
And it's not just about fame and fortune, right? It's about personal alignment, too.
Absolutely. Michelle Obama, in her book Becoming, is so candid about this. She talks about actively questioning who society or her background taught her to be versus who she chose to become, especially navigating these elite spaces where she initially felt like an outsider.
That internal wrestling and choosing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Her journey really highlights the conscious work of choosing your identity, not just inheriting it. And our sources also mention something they call quantum leap breakthroughs.
Okay, what does that mean? Sounds a bit out there.
Well, it sounds dramatic, but they describe situations where people engage in specific acts, like maybe writing a formal closure letter to an old self, or doing certain mirror exercises and then report experiencing sudden shifts, like unexpected opportunities appearing, reconnections, or just this profound inner peace.
So not actual magic, presumably.
No, not magic. The source clarifies it's more about Energetic alignment plus behavioral congruence. You change your internal state, your beliefs, your emotions, your intentions, and you align your actions with that. This internal coherence creates a kind of readiness.
Makes you prepared to see and grab opportunities you might have missed before.
Exactly. Behavioral scientists might call it increasing your readiness potential. You're internally primed for the change.
That makes sense. And you mentioned therapeutic research earlier with psychedelics.
Yes, it's really cutting-edge stuff. Studies, particularly from places like Johns Hopkins and organizations like MAPS, looking at psychedelic-assisted therapy.
For things like PTSD.
Right, MDMA for PTSD or psilocybin for depression or anxiety. Participants in these trials often report this really striking sensation that their old self, especially the traumatized identity, simply doesn't exist anymore after the guided sessions.
Wow, like it's been wiped clean?
In a sense, it strongly reinforces this idea that identity is far more fluid, far more rewritable than we ever thought.
Okay, this is all incredibly compelling. Which brings us to the most important question for everyone listening. How do we actually do this? How do we start uninstalling? Our sources lay out a specific process, right? The uninstall method.
They do. It's a very practical 4-step method designed to be really impactful. Step 1 is name the version you're uninstalling.
Get specific.
Brutally specific. You complete the sentence, this is the version of me who, and you have to be unflinchingly honest.
Can you give some examples?
Sure. It might be. Thinks she has to earn love by constantly overgiving. Or believes money always equals pressure and struggle. Or maybe is deeply afraid to be seen or to speak her truth. You have to clearly identify that outdated program, that specific line of code that's holding you back.
That honesty part sounds like the hardest step, actually. Really looking at the code that's been running your show.
It truly can be. We often have blind spots about our own operating systems, but it's absolutely crucial. Then, step 2 is to write her uninstall script. And this is important. Pen and paper.
Why pen and paper?
The physical act seems to be key. It engages different parts of the brain, bypasses some of our usual mental resistance. You start by writing something like, thank you for protecting me. You were built to keep me safe. But now you're outdated. I'm uninstalling this identity. I'm ready to run the upgraded version.
Acknowledging its past purpose, but releasing it.
Exactly. Then you detail what she believed, what she feared, the whole story she told herself about the world and her place in it. And you end with something like, I release you with gratitude. You don't belong in my future. It's a ritual.
Okay, a conscious uncoupling from the old self, written down. Then what?
Then, step 3. Install the new version. You've cleared the space, now you define what fills it. You write, this is the version of me I choose to run now.
And you describe her?
Yes, describe her like a real person. What does this new version believe? How does she act consistently? What boundaries does she hold? What does she absolutely refuse to tolerate anymore? You're essentially writing the positive code for your new program.
Defining the upgrade. Makes sense. And the final step, you mentioned something about a mirror.
That's step 4. The mirror lock-in trick. It's described as a really quick but powerful way to anchor the change, like a 2-second reprogramming.
Okay, how does that work?
You stand in front of a mirror, you really look at yourself, maybe like you haven't before, and you say out loud, the old version is gone. I'm now running version your name 2.0, and this version gets everything she wants.
Saying it out loud is important.
Very. And then this is key. You immediately turn and walk away from the mirror. No lingering, no second guessing, no analyzing. Just declare it and leave.
Wow, like sealing the deal.
Exactly. That declarative statement, combined with the physical action and breaking gaze, seems to powerfully bypass conscious doubt and helps embed that new identity signal deep into your subconscious and neural pathways.
So after someone goes through this process, naming, writing the script, installing the new, doing the mirror trick, what does it actually feel like? What happens?
Well, the sources describe a noticeable physiological shift for many people. You might literally feel your nervous system relax, become less clenched. Your thoughts might slow down, feel less chaotic. Some people describe feeling like energetically lighter. 10 pounds lighter was one description.
A palpable shift.
Yeah. Yes, a palpable internal shift. And the idea is when you genuinely change that internal code, that core frequency you're operating from, the world starts to respond differently to the new signal you're putting out.
Your internal coherence starts attracting different external experiences.
That's the concept. You become aligned with a different reality.
So this is how you can genuinely shift timelines or change your future experiences. Not by frantically doing more on top of the old system,
No.
but by deliberately, consciously deleting what doesn't belong anymore, letting go of the outdated identity.
It really boils down to that internal reorganization. And honestly, the courageous act of subtraction rather than just endless external accumulation.
Wow. Well, we really hope this deep dive has opened up some possibilities for you, shown you that your identity isn't this fixed, unchangeable thing. It really is remarkably programmable.
And yes. And you, as the operator, you truly have the power to intentionally uninstall those outdated versions of yourself that are no longer serving you.
We've touched on the science that backs this up, which is fascinating in itself, and walked through a powerful, practical method you can actually try.
Remember, often the most profound transformations don't come from adding more things to your life.
Right.
They come from the courage to let go of what no longer serves the person you are choosing to become.
So maybe the thought to leave you with today is this. If your identity truly is a program, what outdated lines of code might you still be running, maybe unconsciously, that you haven't even identified yet? What code is holding you back from your next great leap?
What version of you is currently at the helm, and is she or he really steering you towards the future you desire?
Something to really consider. We truly hope this has been helpful and maybe sparked something for you to unlock what's next.